This decision is yours alone to make. Only do so quickly. Give it to me. You can do with it as you will later.
Bene.
Jump!
Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is the newest installment in the Assassin's Creed franchise, which picks up where the previous game left off. You still play Ezio Auditore, or rather you play Desmond as he relives the memories of his ancient ancestor. Most of the gameplay is centered in a reproduction of Rome as it existed in Renaissance Italy, though there are a few rather painful segments you have to go through in the quote-unquote modern world. Still, Brotherhood is more than just an expansion pack. It adds significantly to the gameplay and does a more than adequate job of continuing the story. Let's look at the specifics. Graphics in Brotherhood look about the same as they did in the previous game, which is not, mind you, a bad thing. The scenery is still breathtaking, the animations believably lifelike, and the textures are something to be commended. The only thing a little lacking are the character models themselves, but even this is minimal. Overall, the Assassin's Creed games have amazing graphics, if not quite as stunning as a Final Fantasy or other JRPG game, then certainly at least enough to do honor to the romance and beauty of the Italian Renaissance. With half a point taken off for the sometimes goofy-looking character models, not to mention strangely pupilless eyes, I'm going to give graphics a 4.5 out of 5 Hidden Blades. Voiceover-wise, Brotherhood does a bang-up job, with everyone in Renaissance Italy sounding authentically Italian, at least to my uneducated ears. Ezio himself is capable of displaying a broad range of emotions with his voice alone, from good spirits to depression and everything in between. The rest of the cast follows his model, and I can't think of a single instance when venturing through the past that I thought any voice actor did his or her job poorly. The modern-day cast, however, well, less impressive. Let's leave it at that. The music in the game seems to be made up of both recycled versions of previously used songs and entirely new ones. Some of the songs have a tendency to be overplayed, which does get grating after a little while, but other than that, they're actually very pretty to listen to, and I have full plans to buy the OST when it's released. I guess for overall effort, I'd have to say the sound for Brotherhood is pretty excellent. I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
I could not leave without you.
The way out will be dangerous. Protect our mother.
This time around, you won't be able to spend all your time as Ezio. There are actually some sequences where you have to play as Desmond. This can be a good or bad thing depending on how you feel about characters with the personality of, well, let's say a cardboard box. It almost seems that when the writers designed the modern-day characters, they just sort of reached into a bag full of stereotypes and assigned them out. We have everything from a tech whiz, possible lesbian, to uptight British a-hole, to no-nonsense blonde who happens to look somewhat like a fish. Let's not forget, of course, Desmond himself, who showed the entirety of his emotional depth in about the first 5 minutes of the initial Assassin's Creed game. Many old favorites also make appearances, complete with an addition of much-needed depth of personality. Ezio's mother, for example, no longer spends the entirety of the game in a near-comatose state at the side of an empty bed. Instead, she takes a semi-active role in the preceding plot. Leonardo also returns, although he looks rather more pedo-bear-like, with his beard grown out to more traditionally Da Vinci fullness. The story of Brotherhood starts off as little more than a bunch of side quests. Go here, talk to this guy, kill this contingent of Borgia soldiers, and so on. It picks up a little as you keep playing, though, including opening up flashback quests that take place before and between the events that happened in the previous game. These flashback quests are a useful and interesting tool for exposition, and really flesh out Ezio as a character who existed before the events of AC2. However, the flashbacks certainly aren't all sunshine and daisies. Most of them are sad, if not downright depressing. Judging from forum posts and comments on relevant YouTube videos, I'm not the only one unhappy about Ubisoft's attempts to top itself emotional gut punch-wise. Without ruining the story, let me give you this warning. Like the games before it, Brotherhood is not a game for the soft of heart. And to be perfectly honest, although the flashbacks are interesting, the story involved in the actual missions wasn't really deep enough to draw me in. I was a lot more emotionally invested in AC2. Brotherhood was a lot more concerned with the actions at hand rather than explaining why those actions were necessary. I'm gonna give Brotherhood's story a 3 out of 5 Hidden Blades. In some ways, controls have been improved over the last games, yet you're still likely to find Ezio jumping in a completely different direction than you intended. This happened a lot less for me in Brotherhood than it did in AC2, but I'm not really certain if that's due to an improvement in controls or whether I'm just starting to suck less. Either way, the controls are already pretty responsive. There are some new features to the combat as well. You now have the ability to aim a kick at your opponent, which breaks through their defenses easily, so you waste less time waiting for a chance to counter. Even cooler, Ubisoft has installed something called kill streaks, which allow you to basically lay a swath of destruction all around you with very little effort, as long as enemies are stupid enough to keep coming into range. Rather than have to break through each one's defenses or wait for a chance to counter, going on a kill streak allows you to slay enemies right and left as fast as you can hit the button. Also new to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood are optional criteria for getting full synchronization on a mission, kind of like the extra boasts you can make in Fable 1. For instance, to finish a mission you might have to kill a certain enemy, but to get full sync on it you can't take any damage yourself. It's a nice thought, but oftentimes it can become extremely tedious, mostly due to checkpoints not working properly. If you mess up and lose sync at any point during the mission, you cannot simply revert back to a checkpoint, you have to start the entire mission over from the beginning. This makes no sense and I found it unbelievably irritating. I mean, what the heck is even the point of having a checkpoint? And of course the biggest addition to gameplay, mini assassins! Well, they're not really mini, but later in the game you do gain the ability to find and train your own fledgling assassins, who you can either send off on their own missions for experience and loot, or call in to help you take out some enemies without blowing your cover. You can even call down an arrow storm, instantly killing every bad guy in sight. As a final note on gameplay, because it is important, Brotherhood finally introduces some much-needed breakup in the typical flow of gameplay. This mostly happens in the form of Leonardo's quest, in which you are sent to destroy several types of machines he was forced to make for the Borgia. You'll find yourself piloting the flying machine from the last game, only with some improvements to make flying a little less like getting a root canal. There are other machines as well, like a war gondola and even a man-powered tank. After completing all of them, Leonardo will reward you with the ability to use parachutes, which allows some pretty sweet air assassinations, as well as giving you an easy way down from high up places that doesn't involve breaking either of Ezio's legs. I find the controls and new gameplay of Brotherhood pretty satisfying, so I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. You thought I'd forgotten, didn't you? Of course not. One of the things most advertised before Brotherhood ever came out was, of course, its multiplayer capabilities. I've since tried a range of the modes available, and let me assure you, it's not Call of Duty. I don't mean that it's inferior, just very different. You'll basically play as you do in single player, hunting down a target while avoiding death from behind, with the major exception that both your quarry and those in pursuit of you are played by live players. The more you play in multiplayer, the more class add-ons you have available to you. Things like smoke bombs, poison, etc., that do different things depending on the situation. I'll probably play multiplayer more in the future after I've recovered enough of my pride to try again. Until then, I'll just tell you that, while it's not really for me, Brotherhood's multiplayer has some definite possibilities for having fun. I'm gonna have to take off some points for the steep learning curve as well as the radar being way too specific, but let me give Brotherhood's gameplay a 3 out of 5. So while it starts out slow and disjointed, more like an Assassin's Creed 2.5, I do think that the game earns its right as a standalone later on. I ate up Brotherhood, beating it in a matter of days, which is not typical of me. I'm a little depressed because I doubt the next Assassin's Creed game is going to feature Ezio prominently, but I do look forward to seeing where the story goes. Until then, I shall give Brotherhood a total of 7.5 out of 10 hidden blades, and a pedolio for lulz. Happy hunting, guys!
Mierda. I have to find Mario and rally the troops.
My men are in the courtyard. I aim to lead them around back and flank our attackers.
Stay out of sight.
It's the Borgia!